Hello and welcome. This is the Pre-Chiro Project, and I am your host, Dr. Ben Glass. Today we are having a professional chiropractor connection out in Chicago with Dr. Johnny Reuter. Johnny, can you get us started by just introducing yourself and reflecting on what it was that attracted you to becoming a chiropractor, where you were at in life, and what that moment was that, you just decided now is the time?
Yeah, for sure. I'm Johnny Reuter. I'm a chiropractor of 2 years now, which is insane. And I knew I wanted to be a chiropractor ever since I was 13 years old. I had really bad allergies, really bad sinus stuff going on. My dad had the same issues, and so what was really important was my dad getting exposed to chiropractic first. And then the chiropractor, like any good chiropractor would do, said, "Hey, you talk about your son having these same issues. Why don't you get him in here?" And so I eventually went into the chiropractor and got adjusted for probably, you know, 2 or 3 weeks at 3 times a week. And it completely reversed and corrected everything that I had going on in regards to allergies. And I still hold that benefit to this day. And I remember actually being 13 in the chiropractor's office, looking at the chiropractor and being like, I'm going to do exactly what you did for me for other people someday. And I think that's an important kind of revelation that I had in life. And from that point on, ever since I was that age, I followed that journey all the way through high school, through interning at senior year in high school, and then going to undergrad, getting my kinesiology degree from University of Wisconsin Eau Claire, and then going to Life University for my chiropractic degree. So from the age of 13, from from adolescence all the way to now, it has been this journey of just um, amazing exposure to chiropractic and an amazing story to just kind of living my childhood dream is pretty much what it is.
Hmm. All right, let's tease out some of those layers. So, from the age of 13 to what age did you go into chiropractic school? And then, when you were in high school in that internship, if you could reflect on what was special about that internship, what were some of the details that you were able to get, through experience, but also through observation of, how did that internship really shape your views of like going into college and knowing, okay, now it's time for me to start studying this deeper because I have the experience that I gained in high school. Like, how did that really help propel you or catapult you with momentum into college? And how did you make the most of that when you were in college?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the biggest thing for me in high school was realizing that I wanted to go on this path right away, right? And it was before high school that I realized I wanted to be a chiropractor. So my journey was pretty clear cut and easy. And not a lot of people have that, right? A lot of people are searching kind of for what they want to do, what they want to be when they, grow up essentially. But that it was a pretty clear cut path. And when senior year rolled around, we were able to do an internship and go kind of explore the career option that we were most interested in. And so, what I was able to do, I think one of the best benefits of it was I was able to be out half the day in the chiropractic office. I would show up in the morning. I would get to the chiropractic office at 7 in the morning, and I would work until about 11 a.m. And then I'd go in for lunch and PE, and then I'd leave for the day from high school. And that was my senior year. It was pretty awesome. But I also got extreme exposure to the chiropractic profession and everything that it was, and seeing people get well, from 7 and 11 a.m. And seeing kids come in and all ages get adjusted. And it was like, holy smokes, it just opened my world even more. And I would encourage any student that's thinking or on the fence of chiropractic to go visit an office or three or five, and just go visit them. Chiropractors are some of the nicest people that I know. Obviously, I'm a little biased about that, but if you're in Chicago and you want to come visit my office, feel free, right? It's an open door invitation. And the reason for that is because we don't have enough chiropractors. And frankly, we've been working on getting those numbers up for a long, long time. But that pre-chiro journey was important to me. So that was high school. Had a really great early on exposure to chiropractic. And then obviously that just solidified my decision to go into the profession and do what I wanted to do. So fast forward to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, where I went to undergrad. I knew I wanted to major in something that was going to be beneficial to the study of the human body, right? And so that's why I chose kinesiology. A lot of people choose kinesiology, biology. Some people even choose chemistry or physics. It just really depends on what your passion is. My passion was sports, as well as, family wellness at that point, because I was seeing it and that's what I grew up in. And so kinesiology and just understanding how the human body really worked was important to me. And I would also argue, I mean, there's a couple of different paths you can go on, and Doc, you probably talk about this as well on the show, but some chiropractic schools offer undergraduate degrees. So when you're in an undergraduate situation, you should want to learn and figure out, like, okay, do I want to do this for 90 credits and then go get my undergrad and doctorate of chiropractic at a chiropractic school, or do I actually want the full 4-year undergraduate experience and actually doing that at an undergrad school? That was my choice. I knew I didn't want to do 90 credits and kind of accelerate my program. And so I did a full 4 years at Eau Claire, had a great time, learned a ton about myself, about chiropractic, about the human body. And those were some of the funnest classes I've ever taken, like Anatomy 101, physics, and, some of those classes that are a little bit more challenging, but really lay the groundwork for chiropractic school. And then I'm going to fast forward to chiropractic school. Once I got there, it was actually pretty interesting. And this is why I encourage a lot of people to actually begin, in some sort of health major, right? It can be healthcare, it can be biology, it can be kinesiology, something along those lines. Because when I got to chiropractic school, I learned a lot of my friends and a lot of people I met early on in chiropractic school actually had zero background in the human anatomy, physiology, and at least I had a little bit of a leg up in regards to my counterparts. And the reason for that was because I actually understood, like, okay, where the femur was. And it sounds easy now, but when you're an undergrad and you're going to chiropractic school, if you don't know where the femur is, you don't know what muscles are attached to it, and now you're learning this for the first time, it's your first exposure to it, it can be pretty intense. And that's a fairly easy example, but you think of all the biochemistry you take in chiropractic school, you think about all the physics or all the science classes, biology, anatomy, and physiology classes you take, and it layers on top of one another. And so if you have that foundation going into chiropractic school, I would argue it's pretty important. And then you asked about what age I was going into chiropractic school. I went straight through. So I went from high school to undergrad right when you're supposed to. I graduated in 4 years, went straight into chiropractic school at about 21, 22 years old. And then I graduated chiropractic school in about 3.5 years, and came out a chiropractor at about age 26. So I'm now currently recording this podcast at 28 years old. And like I said, I'm about 2 years old in chiropractic as regards to a doctor, but it's been a heck of a journey so far. So I hope I answered all your questions there.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we could be honest here and reflecting back, not the typical path, to be clear that you want to become a chiropractor, and you were able to leverage that. You created an association, you started you started a social media channel that I remember seeing, just because I've been paying attention to this population for about 10, 12 years now. So when you created that, I was like, okay, somebody gets it. There's no presence of pre-chiro on any campus anywhere, and you were attempting to create some presence online. I'm sure you were doing that at your school. Can you talk about some of the efforts that you made to establish a presence, some successes that you might have had in connecting with fellow students at that campus, and maybe also some challenges that you recognized existed just because you were one of the first people to ever attempt to do this?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me was I knew right when I was young, I knew chiropractic was the journey. So once that became true, once I got to high school age, college age, I started doing a lot of research into chiropractic, right? Figuring out what the history was of chiropractic, understanding who the key role players were in regards to past, present, and then future leaders, right? And how can I insert myself into that future leader role? And pre-chiro was important. Pre-chiro was really important because I think any stage of the game that you're currently in is most important to you at the time, right? And so I think that it's really cool to see you doing this project, because looking back at it, it's like to establish a pre-Chiro kind of curriculum is really challenging, because the resources are just not there, right? I mean, let's be honest, like the resources are barely there for chiropractic school in general, right? Let alone a pre-Chiro structure and curriculum. It's really challenging. So when I got to Eau Claire, we actually had and it still exists to this day. It was about a 25-year running pre-Chiro club on campus that had been started way back in the day, and Wisconsin has been a key role player in chiropractic for a very long time, as a state and as a kind of a beacon of history there. I mean, you think of like Gonstead and Mount Orb and all these things. Chiropractic's been huge in Wisconsin. So I think that plays a key role in regards to why a pre-chiro program was started there. And then I had a lot of counterparts that came before me in the pre-chiro club that actually took me under their wing and were very, very kind. We used to go out to dinner all the time with different chiropractors around town. We used to fly in schools on our little tiny little budget that we had for pre-chiro club. We used to fly in schools. I mean, we probably brought in, by the time I graduated chiropractic school, or by the time I graduated undergrad, we probably sat through 10, 12 different talks of different chiropractic schools. And so that was really great exposure. And one of our big things was a lot of us were more philosophically minded in the pre-chiro club, but our big thing was any new members, we didn't want to really influence them in regards to making decisions for them, right? So it was like, let's bring in the Nationals, the Logans, the Lifes, the Palmers, the Northwesterns, right? All of these different schools, the Western States, the LACCs, like let's bring all of them in, put them in front of the students, and let the students decide what's going to be best for them. And I think that was really important exposure for myself too, because eventually you work through a club, right? You if you're really committed to a club, you're going to go to, treasurer, secretary, vice president, president, right? All that stuff. So by the time I graduated, I was president of the pre-chiro club at Eau Claire, and that was a lot of fun. But again, you mentioned challenges. It was so challenging. It's easy to get schools to fly out to because the pre-chiro club or the pre-chiro segment of population is so small that I think a lot of schools just recognize that. And when you reach out to someone or like an admin kind of contact and you say, hey, we have a pre-chiro club with about 25 members in it. You guys want to come out and talk to us? I think that they're just stoked on that, right? They're like, yes, absolutely. There's no chance. There's no hesitation. And so I think that's why we got a lot of yeses, because it's such a small population of students that are actually looking to go pre-chiro. And they know it at that time, right? Some people don't know that they want to be a chiropractor until they graduate from undergrad and they figure out, oh crap, I want to go back to school and I actually want to do this. Or they have later exposure than some other students. And so they don't recognize that right away. The other thing you brought up was an organization that I started early on. The organization no longer exists, but it was called National Undergraduate Student Chiropractic Association. And that was called, we phrased it NUSCA. And why we did this and what the purpose was behind it was really to make sure that we could leverage the community we were building at Eau Claire and start translating that across different means of campuses and schools, essentially. And there are a couple schools that still have pre-chiro clubs going. I think University of Miami has a pre-chiro program. There are a couple that, from a quick Google search back in the day, we were able to kind of get in touch with some of those other members and some of those other club leaders that were doing really cool things. So what I mean, naturally, I'm a tech guy. I like tech. And so I started creating a website. I started writing blogs about it. And again, like, I think the most important thing is your experience at that time is the most influential for you to share with other people. And so that was really important to me, but it was really hard to gain leverage. And especially while going through undergrad, right? You're having fun, you're going to your classes. There's a lot of other outside noise going on that you don't really have that laser focus that when I got to chiropractic school, I was 100% dialed in on only chiropractic, and I didn't care about anything else, right? And so in undergrad, it's a lot of different bombardments of different things and different energies. And so it was really tough to keep that kind of going, which is why I appreciate so much what you're doing and kind of taking a retroactive approach at it and saying, let me be the guiding and the beacon of light here in regards to like the guidance along your journey. And you're not actually someone in it, right? In regards to like being truly a pre-chiro person. And you're more retroactively putting the pieces together for people. I think that's the smarter way to go about it. But yeah, it was a fun project at the time, really challenging. So I do know what you're going through in regards to putting this program together, but it was a lot of fun at the time too. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I would love to keep going on that, but before we keep going on that, I would also take this moment for you now, being 2 years into practice, having already gone through chiropractic school, to reflect on the value and how that experience in your pre-chiro time, and also just like you had more time in pre-chiro to do more extracurricular stuff. Obviously, you still did extracurricular all through chiropractic school and even now. However, if we're being honest, life gets busier and busier and busier. So it's like now you're out. Can you just look back and really see the value or reflect on the value? And while you're reflecting on the value of your pre-chiro times having helped you in like making chiropractic school maybe have a little more ease in it, or having your practice experience having a little more ease in it, just talk about some of that.
Yeah, for sure. I believe my pre-chiro experience, it going all the way back to when I was a teenager, right? Influenced the success that I had in chiropractic school for sure, 100%. If I were to not say that, I would be lying. So it's absolutely the trajectory. You can see it on if you were to chart it out, right? And so I think it's really important to understand that when you are passionate about anything, right? So no matter if you're a pre-chiro student right now and you're watching this, or you're like, hey, chiropractic sounds interesting, I'm vaguely interested in it, what next, right? That's kind of the journey and the mindset I went on, was like, what next? What can I learn now, right? And once I kind of had a good grasp on like the big leaders of today's day and age, I call them virtual mentors. And I say this because it's like I was following the big names in chiropractic, like Billy DeMoss, right? For an example, right? Most chiropractors know who that is. Either they love him or they hate him. It's okay. It doesn't matter. We're not going to get into that. But you know who he is, right? And I was following him freshman year of college, right? And the reason for that was because I fully put myself into chiropractic at the time, because I knew that this was my journey, this was my path. And so I'm going to speak on like that for a second, because that's my experience. So I know that best. If that is your path, if you know you're going to become a chiropractor already while watching this video, go as deep as you possibly can into the chiropractic profession. Figure out everything you can about it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the in between, literally everything, the history, the techniques, where things came from, how they got their names. Be really, really, really adamant about understanding where chiropractic comes from, because I think it's important that we reflect on 125 plus years of chiropractic, and a lot of people don't recognize that, right? And nowadays we get a lot of new grads coming out of chiropractic school. And my first day of chiropractic school, we had a professor who taught us whatever histomology, right? The tissue, the study of tissues. And so he had everyone stand up individually out of a class of 225 students at Life University, stand up individually and tell them why they were in chiropractic school. And let me tell you, at least 20 of those 225 students said they were in it for the money, right? And it was so confusing to me, because I stood up and I was like, I just rattled off my story, and it was crazy. So it's like you can be in it for the money, but understand like there's a lot that goes into that, right? There's a lot of layers to that we're not going to get to on this podcast. But the idea behind it is I understood exactly what I wanted, and I got there by just immersing myself in the chiropractic profession. And I think that's the word I was looking for all along, was the immersion of chiropractic. I really put myself in it, and I had to, because I had to understand where I was going, and I also had to understand what kind of chiropractor I wanted to be, because I grew up around family wellness. I grew up around everyone getting adjusted 3 times a week, going down to once a week, going down to every other week, and my parents still get adjusted once a week, and so does my brother, right? And that was when that was 12 years ago, right? And so understanding all of that is really important. If you aren't on that path, I think that's important to touch on too. If you aren't on that path, I have several chiropractic students or several chiropractic friends from chiropractic school that weren't on that path, weren't on that similar journey of like taking this to the next level of going all the way through and understanding you want to be a chiropractor. So I think it's important to touch on that for a second. And what I'll say about that is, if you have any inclination, any hunch that you want to be a chiropractor, put it up against 3 different professions. Put it up against 3 different professions that you think are your path, your journey. And once you filter out those 3, now go as hard as you can into all 3 of those professions and figure out which one resonates with you the most. I think that's the most important, because at the end of the day, if we have more chiropractors graduating from chiropractic school that want to be chiropractors and are passionate about chiropractic, the better this planet's going to be. So if chiropractic's not for you, I'd rather you discover that now versus 3 years from now and $250,000 worth of debt from now, right? So make sure you understand why you want to go into the profession you want to go into, and go fully into it. Be the best at it. Be the best at it that you can possibly be. And because frankly, we just don't need more mediocre or average chiropractors. And so if you're listening to this podcast now because Ben's put this project on, I think it's really important that you get clear on, if you're going to be a chiropractor, why you want to be one, look into the history of it, and understand what kind of chiropractor you want to be. If you don't know, if you're not sure, do the 3 filters, write it down on a piece of paper, write your top 3 professions, and get crystal clear on which ones you want to go into and why you want to go into those. I think that's really important, because if money weighs anything on that scale, right? If it's truly money, and we're up against chiropractics, up against pharmacist tech or something like that, right? It doesn't stand a chance. It doesn't, or a farm salesperson, right? Like it doesn't stand a chance. But it's also like, if your why is bigger than the profession and the money, then chiropractic might supersede it. So that's my 2 cents on that. Take it for what it's worth, for sure.
No, that's great advice, and my hope is that throughout the rest of this conversation we could keep that same energy of giving strategies that shape the experience. You just gave a great lesson, which is like essentially how I found chiropractic, and not that I chose it at the end of this project, but I did in my senior year, last semester of my undergrad, do a project where I looked at all these different professions, looked at the pros and the cons, looked at what they were like when I went and visited them. And obviously I didn't visit the correct office at that project. There are different experiences that you'll have in chiropractic depending on which office you go to. But anyway, not any more about me. I want to keep going, just because you have such a valuable experience. You know, you're an example of what I would like to see become the norm, which is that in undergrad, I mean, you found it out in high school, but or even before high school, but in undergrad, I want there to be enough experience available, enough exposure available, that every kinesiology student, every biology student at least knows chiropractic's an available option to them, and at least knows how it's distinct and different from the other professions. If we could accomplish that, then all of a sudden we're going to have chiropractors get invited into the campus health center at that college campus. We're going to have more presence of chiropractic pre-chiro students promoting a new freshman 15, where it's like, you're not gaining 15 pounds, you're gaining 15 new lifestyle habits, or 15 new ways to think about how you're living your life. These are the types of things that I believe a pre-chiro club could bring to their campus, just with that energy of being immersed, as you said, in chiropractic and seeing how being a chiropractor really helps you think differently about your environment, about the people in your environment. You see the subluxations or the gaps in how your environment is maybe not helping the students as well as it could, and you see the possibilities and potential if the environment further supported the students or further supported the people in the environment, that there would be a greater potential that students could actually get healthier in college as opposed to being sicker in college. Um, let's talk more about like what were the most valuable moments that you were able to observe in that pre-Chiro club that you were a part of. Like, I know you said you brought the schools to the club. That was obviously one of them. But were there any other things that you can look back at and be like, you know what? If we're going to have pre-Chiro clubs all over the college campuses in the next 5 to 10 years, these are the best activities, or these were the lessons that I learned that I think other clubs could implement to make the culture of being in a pre-Chiro club different and distinct from maybe a pre-physical therapy club, that could maybe make the pre-Chiro club as strong as possible. Can you do a couple more reflections on that?
Yeah, for sure. I would say definitely influential was bringing the schools and understanding like there were 19 schools. I mean, give or take at any given time, in the United States, but also understanding there were plenty of schools internationally too, and some students, especially if you're in college, you think at least I did as going to school in Wisconsin, like you think more and more about going international in regards to studying abroad and doing these different things, and you have a lot of exposure to doing things internationally as well. So I think it's important to make sure that we highlight international schools. The reason for that is because you can graduate internationally and then come back and take a specific test and actually be licensed as a doctor in the United States. So it's very much the same curriculum. It's just a couple more hoops you have to jump through in order to get your actual U.S. license. But the idea is essentially the same. So the schools is definitely number one. I mean, exposure to schools, understanding, like seeing 8 different schools on a silver platter. Essentially, they would provide lunch and do a PowerPoint, answer any questions you had. They'd bring swag for you, pens and atlases and spines and stuff like that. So you would get like decked out, right? Like if Logan came, you would walk away like the biggest Logan fan you could be. If Life came, it'd be the same exact thing, right? And so the idea behind that was just giving people the exposure to all of the different schools, all of the different philosophies. And that was something we would tell the schools. Please share your philosophical beliefs on health and wellness. And they would do it, right? And they would share it. And we would have them rate and rank chiropractic on that health and wellness scale. Where do you put chiropractic? 0 to 10. 0 being you don't care about chiropractic, it's not important in a lifestyle. 10 being it's the most important thing you could possibly do for yourself, right? And you get schools all over the map. But it was cool because there were 2 things that students could keep track of during that pre-Chiro conversation of like, okay, this school rated this here. How important is that to me? And then it also gives students an opportunity to really pick a school not based on location. I think that's a really bad idea, is picking a school just because it's in your backyard or your home state. And the reason I say that is because you should go and travel somewhere else and have a different experience for 3.5 to 4.5 years, right? You should go out and try different things, and you should get the exposure that you need. And you should also be in a school that's philosophically aligned with what you believe to be true. So I'm from Chicago originally. I went to school in Wisconsin for undergrad. I went to school in Atlanta for chiropractic school. I came back to Chicago for many different reasons, but the idea is I went out to go seek what I needed, right? And to go get what I needed. And I think that's really an important conversation. Now, for the pre-Chiro club, if we were to put together a curriculum, I would give you a top 3 things. Number one, bring schools in for sure. Every school, not some, every single school that will say yes to you and that will fly out on their own dime, because most of them will. And they'll bring swag, they'll bring a presentation, etc. We've talked about that. Number two would be go visit doctors' offices. Please go visit doctors' offices and do a pre-Chiro field trip because it's so important. And doctors around at least our school were so open, and most chiropractors are so open to having pre-chiropractic students into their offices, and all they'll provide dinner. I mean, I can't tell you enough times how many times that people actually were like, hey, let us supply you drinks, pizza, whatever it was, and come to our office, hang out with us for the night. You can see the end of the shift, and then we'll have a conversation. We'll talk afterwards. We'll eat some pizza and we'll chill out, right? And that was so fun. We visited so many chiropractic offices at the time, and I lined up through doing that. I lined up two different internships during undergrad, and I lined up a job during undergrad as a CA, which is a chiropractic assistant. And again, like I was immersed in chiropractic, right? So I knew that I wanted to go be around the profession all the time. Some people aren't always like that, but it was for me, right? So definitely visiting offices for sure. And then the third thing would be, which might be the most important thing, is having the pre-Chiro students who know the most, who are probably the most senior at that point, having them actually do presentation nights and actually sharing like, these are the 33 principles of chiropractic. No matter if it's philosophical based or not, it does not matter. I think everyone should know the 33 principles of chiropractic. If you believe them or not, it's up to you, and what your philosophy is. And then going forward from there, it's like teaching the foundations of like, here are the core things that you need going through undergraduate studies to get into chiropractic school, because nobody freaking knows. Nobody knows, and every school is different. So if we can come up with a curriculum or category of like, these are the top 5 classes, or these are all the classes that you for sure 100% need to get into chiropractic school in 4 years, then you need to do it, right? But exposing people to that, and also involving the pre-Chiro club at career fairs, right? Like if we were really adamant as a pre-Chiro club at Eau Claire to get into the career fair, because one, we were kind of like we were an on-campus organization, but we were kind of just like neglected at most turns, just because we were so small, right? We were only like 15, 20 students, where like the athletic training group had maybe, 75 to 100 kids in it at one given time. And so we would oftentimes just get neglected. And so what we would do is argue for a spot at the career fair, because most people didn't know chiropractic was even an option. And so bringing pre-Chiro to the career fair, talking to more students, and then students are like, oh my gosh, this is actually kind of crazy. Like, I didn't know chiropractic was even an option, right? Like, this is kind of cool. You'd hear those stories from students and be like, oh, my uncle's a chiropractor, but I don't know how he really got there, right? It was just like he woke up a chiropractor one day, right? And it's like, no, there are steps that he had to take to get there. And so I think involving pre-Chiro more on college campuses is important, but establishing those roots is really important too. So schools, visiting doctors, as well as definitely doing presentations on the foundations of chiropractic, as well as what's necessary to get into school. And lastly, obviously maybe a bonus curriculum point is get involved in the career fair for sure. That would be if I were to put together a curriculum, those would be my top 4 things I would want to do on every college campus for sure.
Amazing. Yeah, so just to give you some insights, you touched on the schools. That's module 6. To me, that's like the admissions process when you're starting to really look at the schools. And then you touched on module 3, which is like going and experiencing chiropractic, being an apprentice, having a structured experience where you're able to go multiple times. One time to observe the adjusting, one time to observe the education, one time to observe maybe the back-end marketing and software that electronic health records, and just how they start to prepare a report of findings, or how they start to put together their paperwork. And then finally, just looking at basically the office space, taking as much in as you can, and watching the types of people that are coming to the office, looking at just kind of what it feels like to imagine yourself in that chiropractor's position with this being your, I guess you call workspace. So anyway, just wanted to touch on that. But what I would love for you to now get into is your Chiro student story, and if you could do it through the lens of so module one is the foundations, like what is chiropractic, why do people become chiropractors, so on. Module two is really the skill building, and I created a framework which is basically taking the word innate and breaking it into the inner state. And the inner state is an acronym for your inner scientist, your inner thinker, your inner artist, your inner teacher, and your inner entrepreneur. And basically, I would love for you to reflect on basically how you developed yourself in each of the, philosophy, art, science, business, communication. Once you got to chiropractic school, what did you gravitate towards? Which clubs did you get involved in? What were some of the most valuable resources or mentors that you had? What did they teach you? Just to keep building insights for students of what it could look like.
Yeah, yeah. Chiropractic school is an extremely hands-on, and no pun intended there, but extremely hands-on education experience. And it is what you make it. I mean, I could probably end there, right? It is what you make it. What you put in the chiropractic school, you will absolutely get out. And so some students, I was really big when I got to chiropractic school. It was game on, meaning it was study my butt off. Make sure that my end goal from day one chiropractic school was pass boards, pass boards, get pass boards, get your license, right? That because if you go that long from 13 years old all the way to chiropractic school, the last thing you want to do is fail boards and not be able to get a license. So I always, always, always encourage people to go into chiropractic school with a frame of mind. Yes, chiropractic school is challenging. It is tough. It's a lot of classes. It's a lot of time. I went from, just to give you a frame of reference, I went from being able to take a max of like, or not a max, but an average of like probably 12 to 18 credit hours for undergrad classes, and per semester to taking 31 credit hours per quarter in chiropractic school. So to give you a frame of mind of like, if you think about that, you pretty much double, or if not a little bit over, the amount of credit hours you're actually taking, and in a shorter amount of time. A quarter is only 11 weeks long, and that's if you include finals week. So it's crazy fast. And what happened, and if you go to a quarter school, some schools are quarters, some schools are trimesters in chiropractic. I don't think there are many, if any, semester schools, but I could be wrong on that. But most are quarters, most are trimesters. And so your schooling is very, very, very challenging, and it's a lot of schooling. And so what you want to do is, obviously, step one, I'll just keep up with the steps. I'll just keep giving you three things. Step one, take your academics seriously. I saw a lot of students blow off academia in chiropractic school. And for me, it's when I turned academia on. And it was like, I need to do this for myself. I'm paying way too much money to be here. And I cannot screw this up, right? This is really important to me. I studied, I for part one boards, I probably overkilled. I did every board review program there was, because I said to myself, part one's the toughest in regards to what you hear. But it's also just tough to get into, the frame of mind of taking a board exam and a standardized test, because you don't do a lot of that in undergrad. You just take tests or, write reports or whatever it is. And so to get on that standard level of like, holy crap, this is my future, I think is really important. So frame of mind in taking academia very seriously when you get to chiropractic school, and just understanding like how serious it is, because it is. I have had chiropractic counterparts I started with fall back and fall behind. And I mean, it was probably 2 years or a year and a half later that they finally graduated. And it is what it is, right? Life does happen. And that is true. And I'm not saying go as fast as you can, as hard as you can. That's not necessarily right for everybody. But I think that the people that fell behind the most didn't take it seriously, right? And they got there realizing, hey, this is just another second undergrad, and they partied. They didn't take classes seriously. They failed quizzes and tests, and they didn't do homework. And it was just like, I don't understand why you would do that, but you pay a lot of money to be in that seat, so make sure you're taking it seriously. That's step number one. Take academia seriously. Step number two is find a core group of friends and close people that you can bounce ideas off of. You can talk to. In my group, I was oftentimes the crazy Chiro nerd that knew like everybody and everything about chiropractic that you could want to know. And the reason for that was because I came from this background of absolute craziness in regards to like just learning about chiropractic before I got to chiropractic school. So, but my friends were awesome. I had the most vitalistic of friends, and I had the most mechanistic of friends. And I think that it was fun because we would go out for drinks and tacos after, class or whatever. And we would get into heavy debates about a lot of interesting things, right? And you could probably think of like the top thing that we would talk about, but the idea is that we would have these conversations as students of chiropractic, and we were all in this together. And from the most mechanistic person that's like, yes, we need some, external substances to get us well, to the most vitalistic person that's like, the sun cures everything. It's just like you have those mixing and those melting pots in chiropractic school. And I think it's a lot of fun to kind of surround yourself with not only like-minded people, but people that differ from you as well, because I think you can learn a lot through those conversations. And I know I did for sure. And I still learn. They're my best friends to this day. And they were my best friends during chiropractic school. They were the people I studied all the time with. They were the people we freaked out about exams with. They were the people that are there through the highs, through the lows, through I passed, I didn't, those kinds of conversations. And it got you through the toughest of times. I remember being in my apartment, and we had all of us in the room together. We were all studying, shouting out questions and answers, and laughing and playing music, and just having a good time, because it just creates that environment of like, yes, take academia seriously, but also have profound conversations with your counterparts that I think is really, really important. So surrounding yourself, step two is surrounding yourself with amazing, amazing people and peers that want to see you succeed, and you create that friend group that is really, really meaningful to you. And again, they're my best friends to this day. So the third thing I would say is, yes, club involvement, or just, I would say, rather than club involvement, I would say general involvement in the chiropractic profession, right? Being a student of chiropractic in regards to like academia is one thing. Being a student of, your parallel curriculum, if you will, of like learning how to adjust, understanding where the bones are, what the misalignments look like on x-ray, what they look like, just with palpation, what they feel like, I guess. And then understanding like getting involved in on-campus clubs as well as off-campus clubs, because there's a lot of coaching groups. And I always say this about pre-chiro students / chiropractic students, frankly. Chiropractic students in general are the most oversold to population in the entire planet, I would argue. I don't think anything compares to it. And so when you're that oversold to, when there's constantly bombardment of do this for me, do that for me, join my group, do this, I think you get really, I don't think you do, and I did, you get really overwhelmed on the idea of like being pulled in so many different directions. And I said to myself, like, I wasn't as big into clubs on campus as I probably should have been, but there was a reason for that, was because I was taking my academia very, very seriously. But at the same token, I was heavily involved in off-campus things, right? In regards to learning how to adjust, in regards to doing like communication. learning the business side of things, talking about money, profitability as a chiropractor was really fun for me because you could see where the puck was going, right? You could see where like, okay, yes, I'm graduating with this lump sum of student debt, but at the same token, I'm hanging out with some of the most successful chiropractors in the world. And it was a lot of fun. So going to like big events, like we went to Life Vision quite a few times. I know there's tons of events that different coaching management groups put on, but go to those huge events, meet different people. People fly from all over the country, all over the world to go to these different events. Go talk and mingle with those people, have valuable conversations with them in the hallways, on breaks. Go learn something new. Go open your mind to a new perspective. So I was more into the scene of the kind of off-campus stuff. And again, I'll protect Dr. Ben's podcast here and say like, please do not go out and adjust people without a doctor, without a license of chiropractic. But definitely get your freaking hands on people in regards to feeling exactly what a subluxation is, how it moves, how a vertebrae moves. And obviously, step 2 to that would be get consent first. That's important. But understanding when you do it with when you're palpating with your friends and feeling like this is how an atlas moves, this is how an axis moves, this is how a T1 moves, you start to get really, really good with your hands. And it's fun too, because you always are going to try things with your closest friends in chiropractic school. It's just inevitable, right? And I'm not going to discourage doing that. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think that's where I learned a lot of what I learned. And yeah, that's what I would say about chiropractic school is definitely take your academia seriously. Step 2 would be to find close friends, and surround yourself with like-minded people and not like-minded people. And then step 3 is get on and off campus to start getting involved, maybe in the school, maybe in other organizations, but definitely do things to get involved in the chiropractic profession in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great segue for kind of the final chapter of becoming a chiropractor, which is speaking about that transition into the real world. What were some challenges you faced? What were some successes that you had? Also talking about professional engagement, what you've created to help strengthen the profession, to help build a better ecosystem within the profession. Maybe just making some notes on the observations you made that led you to create these projects, and yeah, just speak about those types of ideas and topics.
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing transitioning from chiropractic school to a real life, essentially, because when you're in chiropractic school, you live in a bubble. It is a bubble 100% of the time. And you really don't know anything else but chiropractic school, especially if you're going as hard as we were or as hard as I was, and you're taking it as seriously as I was. So when you even go to like, you'll realize like at like Christmas and Thanksgiving and things like that, that like you really have nothing to talk to people about because you don't know anything else. Your only truth and reality is chiropractic school and whatever you're learning that quarter. And it's really hard to relate to people outside of that. So it became really challenging. And so once you graduate, once you pass all your boards, which in the United States is 5 chiropractic board exams. Most states require PT now. I don't think we can say that you shouldn't take PT. And I think it's still a good idea because even if you go to a state that doesn't require it, they're probably going to require it in the next 5 years. So you might as well just take it and get it over with. And you take part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and PT boards. And then you are able to apply for a chiropractic license in a specific state. And it's really, really important that you pass all those boards. And it's also really, really important that you get your chiropractic license, essentially. Because at the end of the day, that's why you went to school. That's why you did what you did. And now you're able to go out and serve your community. The way that I chose to go about serving my community was I wanted to learn exactly how to run a chiropractic office and how to be a better clinician, because nobody is a good clinician coming out of chiropractic school. And I'm just going to be honest. I'm just going to be honest. They don't teach you enough about adjusting. They don't teach you enough about different cases you're going to see. They don't teach you enough about x-rays if that's what you're into. They don't teach you enough about specific techniques. They teach you enough to pass boards, and that's their most important job. And a lot of people are mad at chiropractic schools for not teaching more. Frankly, I think you learn enough to pass boards, and that's really their only job. That's all they care about. And so, to be honest with you, I think going into an associateship is a very smart move. I associated after chiropractic school. Not everyone has to, but I associated out of chiropractic school for a year and a half. And I knew I wanted to. So I graduated in March of 2020. So pandemic right away, boom, smacks you right in the face. You have no idea. So challenge number one was the pandemic. I mean, it was just insane. So I graduated March 27th, 2020. I landed a job, an associateship that was with a phenomenal mentor, phenomenal chiropractor here in Aurora, Illinois. And then what happened after, as I went through that journey, was I learned so much about myself, about chiropractic in regards to just how the body heals and seeing it every day in practice, and about communication and understanding that if people have misalignment, subluxations, and restrictions in their spine, it could be detrimental to their health, and taking that seriously. And then lastly, I learned money management and business, right? How to be profitable as a chiropractor. And then I took all of those skill sets and bought a practice of my own in downtown Chicago, which is where I'm at now. And this is where I've been since October/November of 2021. And so in regards to chiropractic as a whole, I'm fairly familiar with the profession. I love the profession. As a chiropractor, I'm a baby. I am 2 years old, right? I know a lot, but I also know very little at the same time, right? And I will never speak on what I haven't experienced before, because I think that's important, that we have a lot of people that will speak on things that they don't necessarily know about. And I think it's important to kind of make sure I don't do that. At least for myself, it's important. And so now with other challenges I would name would be understanding how to be a good clinician, learning how to adjust high volumes of people if that's what you want to do, learning to do it the right way through the right training to not hurt or injure yourself at a young and or old age coming out as a chiropractor, and growing a scalable and sustainable business. Because no one graduating, unless you went and got your business degree before chiropractic school, which not a lot of people do, not a lot of people know a lot about business graduating chiropractic school. So why I encourage associating as well right out of chiro school is for all of those skill sets that I mentioned before. And understanding that if you're going to run a business, if you're going to support a family, if you're going to support yourself and your community, and you have to, frankly, keep the lights on in your practice. And without profitability, you cannot do that. And one of my best and favorite mentors, Dr. Brad Glowacki, always says the more profitable chiropractors we have in the world, the better chiropractic will be. And I firmly believe that. I really, really do. Because frankly, the more that I make, the more not only I can support my family, but the more I can give back to this profession in a meaningful way. I can cut checks to clubs. I can cut checks to schools. I can actually put my money where my mouth is. And I think that's most important. And so if you don't run a profitable chiropractic business, I would argue you're not only doing yourself a disservice, but you're also doing your community and your patients a tremendous disservice. So make sure that you value yourself as a chiropractor, make sure that you learn how to money manage, and make sure you surround yourself with the right people. And the right people will get you to where you need to be. But before you go into that relationship, know that eventually you can outgrow those people. And it's okay to outgrow mentors. It's okay to outgrow people who give you advice, but take advantage of their advice at this point in your life, and then go from there and spread your own wings and find new mentors and find new ground to cover, because you're always going to be growing. If you surround yourself with the same mentors your whole entire life, you're not moving anywhere. You're not moving anywhere. You're on a lazy river and you're complacent. And I just did a talk for the Illinois Prairie State Chiropractic Association, and my talk was about complacency kills, meaning complacency kills your business, it kills the profession, and also, frankly, it deters your community and does a huge disservice to your patients. So make sure that you don't become lazy, you don't become complacent as a chiropractor, and you take the small steps to learn exactly what it takes to be successful in this profession. Continue to follow people like Ben, continue to follow people like myself, continue to reach out to people like Ben and myself and other people he's had on this podcast, because again, biased opinion, but chiropractors are some of the friendliest people I know, and they're willing to help the youth of this profession. And if they're not, they'll tell you that. And frankly, I think if they're not willing to help you, you should run the opposite direction and go find someone else in the profession that's willing to help you, because they're out there. They're out there. And then, Doc, I think